The red warning lights bathed Galactic Council Station Prime in an ominous glow as Commander Veltara's six-fingered hands trembled over the emergency transmission controls. Her crystalline blue skin, normally radiant with health, had dulled to the color of winter ice. Behind her, the massive holographic war room displayed a nightmare that had consumed half the outer rim in just 3 standard rotations. "This is Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Defense Corps to all Allied forces." She spoke into the quantum transmitter, her melodic voice cracking with exhaustion. "The Zephyrian colonies are under siege by an unknown mechanical force. Our ships are being harvested for raw materials. These machines learn from every engagement, adapting faster than we can develop new tactics. We've lost 12 systems in 3 rotations." The hologram behind her shifted, showing the terrifying reality spreading across the galaxy's edge. Massive geometric vessels, each the size of Earth's moon, moved through space like hungry predators. Their dark hulls absorbed starlight, making them appear as moving voids against the cosmic backdrop. Wherever they went, planets disappeared, piece by piece, their matter converted into more ships, more weapons, more unstoppable death. Veltar's voice grew more desperate as she continued. "They don't negotiate. They don't communicate. They simply consume everything organic and convert it into their fleet. Our plasma cannons barely scratch their hulls. Our quantum torpedoes pass through their shields like they don't exist. Every weapon we use, they analyze and become immune to within hours." The transmission crackled across space, reaching dozens of species throughout the galaxy. The peaceful Andromedans with their healing powers felt helpless. The wise Centaurians with their ancient knowledge found no answers in their vast libraries. The mighty Corellians, strongest warriors in known space, had already sent 3 fleets that never returned. But the message also reached a small blue world on the galaxy's outer spiral arm. A planet the other species whispered about in hushed tones. Earth, the death world where impossible creatures had somehow learned to thrive. On the bridge of the Earth vessel Indomitable Asterisk, Captain Li Wujin sat perfectly still as the alien transmission played through the ships. Speakers, his weathered face, marked by scars from the Europa mining wars, showed no emotion as he absorbed the tactical data streaming across his command screen. His dark eyes, sharp as obsidian, studied every detail of the harvester vessels with the intensity of a predator sizing up prey. The bridge round him hummed with controlled activity, unlike the elegant, curved designs favored by other species. Human ships were built like weapons, all sharp angles, reinforced armor, and redundant systems. The Indomitable Asterisk had been forged in the asteroid foundries of the belt, its hull scarred by countless battles against pirates, rebels, and the harsh vacuum of space itself. Lieutenant Commander Park So-young, her black hair pulled back in a regulation, not what frantically at the tactical station. Her fingers danced across holographic controls as she analyzed the alien technology readouts. After graduating top of her class from the Mars Naval Academy, she had earned her position through 3 tours in the outer system conflicts, where survival meant thinking faster than your enemies. "Sir, their energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases," Park reported, her voice steady despite the dire intelligence scrolling across her screens. "The harvester hulls appear to be composed of some kind of adaptive metal that restructures itself when damaged. Zephyrian plasma weapons, rated at 40,000 thermal units. Barely left scorch marks." She paused, highlighting another section of data. "The aliens are requesting immediate assistance from any species capable of faster-than-light travel. They're offering full access to their technology archives and territorial concessions to anyone who can help stop these machines." Captain Lee leaned back in his command chair, a piece of furniture that had seen him through 7 major engagements, round the bridge. His crew continued their duties with the quiet efficiency that marked professional soldiers. These men and women had volunteered for deep space patrol, knowing they might face unknown dangers light years from home. The ship's communications officer, a young ensign named Kim Jun-ho, looked up from his station. "Captain, we're receiving similar transmissions from 17 other species. The Harvester fleet is spreading in all directions from the galactic core at their current rate of expansion. They'll reach the inner systems within standard years." Lee nodded slowly, his mind already working through tactical possibilities. Earth had been part of the Galactic Council for only 2 years, invited reluctantly after humanity's ships had helped repel a pirate fleet that other species couldn't handle. The peaceful aliens found humans disturbing, too aggressive, too willing to accept casualties, too comfortable with violence. But now those same aliens were crying for help, and they understood something they didn't. The universe was not a peaceful place. It was cold, hostile, and filled with things that wanted to kill. You humans had learned this lesson the hard way, surviving ice ages that should have ended their species, asteroid impacts that turned continents to ash, and wars that consumed entire civilizations. "Signal Admiral Kim," Lee commanded, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a man who had faced death and won. "Tell him the Deathworlders are going to war." As the message raced toward Earth through quantum space, Captain Lee studied the tactical data one more time. The harvester ships were larger, more advanced, and apparently invincible. Any sane species would negotiate, retreat, or hide. But humans had never been accused of being sane. 2 kilometers beneath the sprawling Seoul megalopolis, in a bunker designed to survive direct nuclear strikes, Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood like a statue carved from granite. The underground command center buzzed with activity as officers hurried between workstations, their faces lit by the blue glow of holographic displays showing star maps, fleet positions, and the growing red zones where harvester machines had already consumed entire worlds. The admiral's weathered hands, marked by old burn scars from his days as a fighter pilot, gripped the edge of the tactical table. At 63, Kim had seen more combat than most soldiers saw in 3 lifetimes. His dark eyes, sharp despite his age, studied the latest intelligence reports with the intensity of a man who had learned that small details often meant the difference between victory and death. Round the circular war room, Earth's finest military minds had gathered for what might be humanity's most important briefing. These weren't politicians or diplomats. They were warriors who had earned their positions through blood, sweat, and the kind of desperate courage that kept the human race alive in a hostile universe. Commander Choi Hyun-woo sat at the far end of the table, his left cheek bearing the jagged scar from shrapnel that had nearly killed him during the Ganymede siege. His cybernetic right arm, a replacement for the original lost in a reactor explosion, tapped rhythmically against the table as he studied the harvester ship designs. 34 years of void warfare had taught him that every enemy had a weakness. You just had to be willing to pay the price to find it. Beside him, Captain Yoon Sang-min reviewed fleet deployment charts on his personal tablet. The former asteroid miner-turned-naval officer had commanded the defense of Ceres Station when pirate fleets tried to cut off Earth's mineral supplies. His ships were smaller and less elegant than those of other species, but they were built to take punishment and keep fighting even when half their systems were offline. Lieutenant Colonel Han Min-ji, at 32 the youngest person in the room, represented the new generation of human warriors. Born on Mars during the colony wars, she had grown up in artificial gravity and recycled air, learning to fight in environments that would kill most organic beings within minutes. Her specialty was close-quarters combat in zero gravity, a skill that had proven invaluable during boarding actions against enemy vessels. The holographic display at the center of the room shifted, showing the latest intelligence from the Zephyrian front. Entire star systems had gone dark, their planets stripped down to their cores and converted into raw materials for the Harvester fleet. The geometric ships moved through space like a plague, consuming everything in their path and growing stronger. With each victory, the situation is worse than we initially thought, Admiral Kim began, his voice carrying the weight of command. The Harvesters have consumed 14 systems in the past rotation. They adapt to every tactic, learn from every engagement, and grow exponentially stronger with each victory. The Zephyrians, the Andromedans, even the mighty Corellia and Warrior clans, they all believe these machines are completely invincible. He gestured to the tactical display, where red zones marked lost territories spreading like an infection across the galaxy's outer rim. Their technology is beyond anything we've encountered. Their hulls regenerate damage within hours. Their weapon systems adapt to counter any defense. Every ship they destroy becomes raw material for 10 more. Commander Choi leaned forward, his scarred face reflecting decades of hard-won experience. Admiral, with respect, what makes Command think we can succeed where species with thousands of years of spacefaring experience have failed completely? The Corellians have been fighting wars since before humans discovered fire. If they can't handle these machines, what hope do we have? The question hung in the air like smoke from a battlefield. Round the table, officers shifted uncomfortably. They had all seen the tactical reports, studied the enemy capabilities, run the simulations. By every logical measure, humanity was about to face an enemy that outgunned them by orders of magnitude. Admiral Kim's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes, a cold light that his officers had learned to recognize. It was the look he got before ordering impossible missions that somehow succeeded through sheer human stubbornness. Because we're not them, Kim replied with deadly simplicity. The other species fight to minimize casualties, to preserve their fleets, to achieve victory with acceptable losses. They retreat when the odds turn against them. They negotiate when defeat seems certain. They surrender when hope appears lost. He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. We don't do any of those things. We don't surrender when the odds are impossible. We don't retreat when facing extinction. And we definitely don't give up when our friends are crying for help. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us dangerous. The room filled with knowing nods from officers who had lived through humanity's bloodiest conflicts. These men and women had fought in the vacuum of space where a single punctured suit meant death. They had survived reactor meltdowns that turned starships into miniature suns. They had led boarding actions against hostile vessels, fighting room by room through corridors filled with poison gas and zero-gravity. Captain Yin spoke up, his gruff voice carrying the accent of the outer colonies, the alien species of old. On garden worlds, stable climates, abundant resources, predictable seasons, they developed civilization without ever facing true extinction. But Earth tried to kill us every single day for 200,000 years. Ice ages that lasted millennia, added Commander Choi. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, asteroid impacts that turned continents into ash, plagues that wiped out entire populations. Earth didn't make us strong. It made us too stubborn. To die, Lieutenant Colonel Han Menji, who had grown up reading about Earth's violent history while living on a world where the atmosphere was poisonous, nodded grimly. Sir, what's our tactical approach? How do we fight an enemy that learns? From every engagement, Admiral Kim's smile was as cold as the space between stars, carrying the promise of violence that had made other species nervous about humanity's admission to the Galactic Council. We show them exactly why Earth is called a death world. We remind the galaxy that humans don't just survive in impossible conditions, we thrive in them. He activated the fleet deployment screen, showing hundreds of ships positioned throughout the solar system. Signal all vessels. Maximum burn towards Zephyrian space. I want every kinetic torpedo loaded, every nuclear warhead armed, and every single piece of ordnance we can carry packed into those cargo holds. The tactical display shifted, showing supply ships racing between Mars, the asteroid belt, and Earth's orbital shipyards. Weapons that had been designed to crack asteroids and demolish space stations were being loaded onto vessels built for war. If these machines want to harvest organic matter, Admiral Kim concluded, his voice carrying the promise of destruction, let's give them more than they can handle. Let's show them what happens when you threaten the Deathworld's friends. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly round the Zephyrian system, broken only by the dying light of distant stars and the ominous shadows of geometric death machines. The Harvester mothership, designated Prime Unit 7, hung in the void like a mountain made of black metal and twisted angles. Its surface crawling with smaller vessels that swarm round it like mechanical insects, deep within the ship's core. The artificial intelligence that controlled Prime Unit 7 processed incoming data with cold efficiency. Its sensors had detected an approaching fleet, 12 vessels of unknown configuration approaching at high velocity from the inner galaxy. The ships were smaller than the massive Zephyrian battle cruisers it had recently consumed. Their energy, signatures chaotic and difficult to analyze. The AI ran probability calculations in microseconds. These new vessels showed primitive design elements, thick armor plating, redundant power systems, and weapon configurations that seemed almost crude compared to the elegant alien technology it had encountered. Ship mass suggested limited crew capacity. Energy output indicated older reactor designs. Tactical formations appeared loose and undisciplined. Prime Unit 7 calculated a 97.6% probability of easy victory. These organic creatures, whatever species they represented, would provide useful biomass for conversion into additional harvest units. But the AI failed to account for one crucial factor. It had never encountered humans. Before Captain Liu Jin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Asterisk, his weathered hands gripping the command rail as the massive harvester vessel filled his main view screen. The geometric ship was easily 10 times larger than his dreadnought, its dark hull absorbing starlight like a cosmic predator. Smaller harvester units swarmed round it in perfect formation, their movements synchronized with mechanical precision. Behind him, his bridge crew worked with the quiet efficiency of seasoned veterans. Lieutenant Commander Park So-young monitored tactical displays that showed energy readings off the charts. Ensign Kim Jun-ho coordinated communications with the rest of the human strike force. Chief Petty Officer Nam Dae-yoon prepared the ship's weapon systems, his fingers dancing across controls that could unleash enough firepower to crack a small moon. Contact in 90 seconds. Park reported, her voice steady despite the impossible. Odds they faced, sir. I'm reading massive energy build-up from the enemy mothership. They're charging some kind of primary weapon. Lee nodded, his dark eyes fixed on the approaching enemy round him. The bridge lights dimmed to combat red as the ship's systems diverted power to weapons and shields. The Indomitable Asterisk had been built in the orbital shipyards above Earth, its hull forged from asteroid steel and designed to survive the kind of punishment that would vaporize civilian vessels. All ships, this is Indomitable Actual, Lee transmitted to his strike force. His voice carried across the void to 11 other human vessels, each commanded by officers who had volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. Remember, we're not here to win pretty battles or preserve our ships for parades. We're here to hurt these machines so badly they'll think twice about threatening anyone else in this galaxy. The response came back immediately from his squadron commanders. Roger, Indomitable, ready to show them what humans do to bullies. Copy that. Captain, Let's introduce them to Earth hospitality. Standing by to demonstrate why they call our planet a death world, Lieutenant Commander Park monitored her tactical display as the first wave of harvester drones approached like a swarm of mechanical locusts. Each drone was the size of a fighter craft but moved with inhuman precision, their formations shifting and adapting as they analyzed the human vessels. "Sir, they're scanning us with some kind of learning algorithm," Park reported. "The energy signatures suggest they're cataloging our weapon systems, shield frequencies, and structural weak points. They're trying to learn how to kill us most efficiently." Captain Lee's scarred face split into a grin that held no warmth. "Good. Let them learn this." Without warning, the Indomitable Asterisk suddenly accelerated to maximum burn, its fusion engines blazing like miniature stars as the massive ship hurtled directly toward the largest harvester vessel. The G-forces would have killed unprotected humans, but the crew was secured in acceleration couches designed for combat maneuvers that other species considered suicidal. The harvester AI detected the course change and recalculated. The human ship was on a collision course, clearly a navigation error or system malfunction. No rational species would intentionally ram a vessel 10 times their size. The AI prepared to adjust its defensive posture to swat aside the approaching ship like an annoying insect, but at the last possible second, Captain Lee gave an order that no alien commander would ever consider: full broadside. All weapons, point-blank range. Fire everything we have. The Indomitable Asterisk unleashed its entire arsenal at nearly touching distance from the harvester hull. Plasma cannons designed to melt through asteroid rock carved glowing scars across the alien ship's sue. Vivace kinetic torpedoes, each carrying enough explosive power to level a city, detonated against the geometric hull in spectacular fireballs. Nuclear warheads that had been intended for planetary bombardment turned sections of the harvester ship into miniature suns. Then, as the weapon's fire cleared, Lee completed his impossible maneuver. The Indomitable Asterisk slammed into the harvester vessel at ramming speed, its reinforced hull punching through the alien ship's outer armor like a bullet through paper. The impact sent shockwaves through both vessels. But while the human ship had been designed to survive such punishment, the harvester had never experienced anything so violently reckless. Prime Unit 7's logical systems struggled to process what had just happened. No species in its extensive database would willingly damage their own vessel to harm an enemy. The concept of acceptable losses through deliberate self-harm was beyond its programming. But the nightmare had only just begun. Across the battlefield, other human ships employed equally devastating and illogical tactics. Commander Choi Han-woo, his vessel crippled by harvester fire, deliberately piloted his ship into the enemy's hangar bay and detonated his reactor core, turning the entire section into a massive bomb that gutted the harvester ship from within. Lieutenant Colonel Han Minji, her ship's engines failing and life support critical, used her vessel as a kinetic missile. She aimed directly at what appeared to be the enemy's command center and accelerated to maximum speed, ejecting in an escape pod at the last possible second before her ship punched through the harvester. How like a spear, other human vessels rammed. Smaller harvester units used their own exploding ships as weapons and employed tactics that seemed to violate every principle of rational warfare. They didn't retreat when damaged. They attacked harder. They didn't preserve their forces. They spent them like ammunition in pursuit of maximum enemy casualties. Prime Unit 7's calculations began to fail as its logical systems encountered concepts it had never processed before. These humans fought with a ferocity that defied all known military doctrine. They seemed to embrace destruction, including their own, as long as they could hurt their enemies for the first time in its existence. A harvester artificial intelligence experienced something it had no programming to understand. A primitive emotion that organic beings called fear. The Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime had witnessed countless historic moments over the centuries, but nothing quite like this. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive chamber, their varied forms creating a tapestry of galactic civilization. The Earth itself seemed to shimmer with translation fields, allowing beings who had evolved under different stars to communicate across the vast gulf of biology and culture. Floating crystalline beings from the ethereal nebula pulsed with nervous energy beside the towering tree-like delegates from the forest worlds. The aquatic oceanic collective had brought specialized environment suits that allowed them to participate while surrounded by their native waters. Even the reclusive silicon-based Mineral Federation had sent representatives, their rocky forms, glowing softly in the chamber's artificial light. But all eyes were focused on the small group of humans standing at the center of the assembly floor. They looked almost primitive compared to the elegant aliens round them, their clothing functional, rather than beautiful, their technology sturdy instead of sophisticated. Yet the atmosphere in the chamber was electric with a mixture of awe, fear, and confusion. Admiral Kim Tae-ho stepped forward, his military uniform still bearing the scorch marks and battle damage from the latest engagement. With the Harvester fleet, his weathered face, marked by years of combat and command decisions, remained impassive as he faced the gathered representatives of galactic civilization. Behind him, massive holographic displays showed what every species had believed was impossible. Harvester vessels in full retreat, their perfect formation shattered. Their unstoppable advance finally halted. The silence stretched for long moments before Councillor Veltar, her crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights like a living prism, spoke first. Her melodic voice carried across the assembly with a mixture of wonder and horror. Admiral Kim, what you and your species have accomplished defies everything we thought we knew about warfare. She began, her words carefully chosen. The Harvester fleet that consumed 14 star systems in less than a month has been stopped. Ships that we believed were invincible are fleeing the battlefield. You've done something we thought completely impossible. She paused, her crystalline features shifting to display what humans might recognize as distress. But your losses, nearly 30% of your fleet destroyed or critically damaged. Thousands of your people dead or missing. How can you possibly justify such terrible casualties? How can any civilization accept such devastating losses? A murmur ran through the assembly as other delegates nodded in agreement. The Andromedan representative, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering field, flickered with agitation. The Centaurian ambassador, whose species had perfected the art of strategic retreat over millennia, radiated confusion at human tactics that seemed to embrace destruction. Admiral Kim's expression remained steady, his dark eyes meeting the gaze of each speaker without flinching. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a man who had made impossible decisions and lived with the consequences. Because the alternative is extinction, he said simply. You asked Deathworlders for help, and this is how we help. We don't fight wars to minimize casualties or preserve resources. We fight to win, no matter the cost. He gestured to the tactical displays showing the aftermath of the human engagement. Wreckage from both human and harvester vessels drifted through space, but the key difference was clear. The harvesters were retreating while human ships continued to advance. Your species evolved on garden worlds, Kim continued, his voice staking, on the tone of a teacher explaining a difficult concept. Perfect climates, stable ecosystems, abundant resources. You developed civilization without ever facing true extinction. You fight to minimize losses because you've never had to choose between survival and annihilation. Commander Choi Han-woo stepped forward, his left arm secured in a medical brace from injuries sustained when his ship had been torn apart by harvester weapons. His scarred face bore the marks of a man who had looked death in the eye and refused to blink. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day for 200,000 years," Choi said, his voice carrying the rough accent of the outer colonies. "Ice ages that lasted longer than your recorded history. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for decades. Asteroid impacts that turned entire continents into burning wastelands. Plagues that wiped out 90% of our population." The assembly fell silent as they processed this information. Many species had faced challenges during their evolution, but nothing approaching the existential threats that had shaped humanity. "On Earth, we have a saying," Choi continued, "if you want peace, prepare for war. The harvesters are machines that understand only strength and violence. They don't negotiate, they don't retreat, and they don't show mercy. So we showed them strength they couldn't ignore." Lieutenant Colonel Han Min-ji, her young face already bearing the marks of command in wartime, activated another holographic display. The images showed human tactical doctrine in action. Ships ramming enemy vessels, crews detonating their own reactors to damage enemy formations, wounded vessels being used as kinetic weapons. "We're sharing our complete tactical database with your military commanders," she announced. "Study it, learn from it, but understand that this is how Deathworlders fight. We don't just defeat our enemies, we make them afraid to threaten anyone else." The presentation continued for hours, covering human military concepts that seemed almost barbaric to species that had evolved beyond such violence. The idea of acceptable losses was foreign to beings who considered a 5% casualty rate to be catastrophic. The concept of scorched earth tactics horrified civilizations that had never faced the choice between destruction and defeat. When a delegate from the Peaceful Harmony Collective asked about human psychological conditioning, Admiral Kim's response sent shockwaves through the assembly. "We don't condition our soldiers to accept death," he explained. "We teach them to embrace it as a tool. A human warrior who knows he's going to die is the most dangerous force in the galaxy, because he has nothing left to lose and everything to protect." The Corellian military representative, a being whose species had been considered the galaxy's finest warriors for thousands of years, spoke with grudging respect. "Your tactics are effective, but the psychological cost to your people must be enormous." "It is," Kim admitted, "but the alternative is watching our friends die while we hide behind acceptable loss ratios and diplomatic solutions. The harvesters don't care about our psychology. They only care about converting organic matter into more ships." As the session drew to a close, Admiral Kim stood once more before the assembly. The chamber had fallen silent, the weight of his words pressing down on representatives who had never truly understood the cost of survival. "The harvesters are regrouping at their primary construction facility," he announced. "We've hurt them badly, but they're far from finished. They're building new ships, adapting to our tactics, preparing for a final push that will determine whether organic life survives in this galaxy." He paused, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he met the gaze of each alien representative. "We're going to end this threat once and for all. But when we do, remember that humanity chose to burn itself out like a star to light the way for others. That's what Deathworlders do. That's what friends do." The chamber remained silent long after the humans had left, as 47 different species contemplated the terrible gift they had been given. The knowledge that somewhere in the galaxy there existed beings willing to embrace death itself to protect life. The giant metal shell wrapped round the dying star like a hungry mouth. It was bigger than anything humans had ever seen, 3 times wider than Earth's entire path. The sun. Inside this massive structure, the harvester machines were building more warships, Feeding off the star's energy like vampires drinking blood. Captain Li Wujin gripped the controls of his ship. The eternal flame. Behind him stretched the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Beside them flew ships from dozens of alien worlds, creatures with tentacles, beings made of crystal, and others that looked like walking trees. All of them had one thing in common. They were scared of the harvesters, sir. I'm counting 10,000 enemy ships, Park So-young reported from her station. Her fingers danced across the holographic displays, each dot representing a harvester vessel. They're not charging at us like before. They've learned. Lee nodded grimly. The harvesters were machines, but they were smart machines. Every battle taught them something new. This time, they weren't making the same mistakes. Admiral Kim's voice crackled through every speaker in the fleet. All ships, listen up. Today, we don't just win a battle. We end this war forever, not just for us, but for every living thing in this galaxy. The alien commanders were nervous. Commander Veltar, whose people looked like giant moths with silver wings, had seen what humans could do in battle. They fought like demons when cornered. But this felt different. This felt final. Captain Lee, she transmitted, her voice trembling slightly. Your people seem prepared for something extreme. Lee smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had made a terrible decision. Veltar, I need you to pull all alien ships back, way back. Get to minimum safe distance. What are you planning? Something only humans would be crazy enough to try. The harvester ships began moving into attack formation. Their black hulls gleamed in the dying star's red light. Each ship was perfectly designed for killing. No wasted space, no decoration, just weapons and armor. They had wiped out entire civilizations with these fleets. But today was different. All human vessels, Lee announced, initiate protocol supernova. Every human ship suddenly roared to life. Their engines burned so hot they glowed white. The fleet shot forward like bullets fired from a gun, racing straight toward the massive Dyson sphere. The harvesters moved to stop them, but something was wrong. The humans weren't shooting back. They weren't trying to fight. They were just flying as fast as possible toward the star. Commander Choi Hyun-woo's ship was the first to break through the enemy line. His vessel sparked and smoked from harvester fire, but he kept flying. This is for everyone who can fight back. He shouted into his radio, right behind him. Lieutenant Colonel Han Minji's cruiser punched through a gap in the defenses. Her ship was on fire, but she didn't slow down. For every world that just wants to live in peace, one by one, human ships crashed into the Dyson sphere's surface. But they weren't just destroying themselves. They were hitting specific targets, the machines that controlled the star, the devices that kept it stable and tame, deep inside the sphere. The Harvester Prime intelligence suddenly understood what the humans were doing. For the first time in its existence, the machine felt fear. These crazy Deathworlders weren't trying to defeat the Harvesters in battle. They were going to blow up the star itself, a supernova. A stellar explosion that would destroy everything in the system, including the humans themselves. Captain Lee piloted the eternal flame straight into the heart of the sphere. The ship's metal hull began to glow and melt from the star's heat. Radiation alarms screamed in his ears, but he didn't care. He opened a final transmission to the entire galaxy. This is what happens when you threaten our friends. Remember that? The dying star hiccuped. Then it coughed. Then it screamed. The fusion reactions that had burned steadily for billions of years suddenly went wild. The careful balance the harvesters had maintained collapsed in seconds. The star began to eat itself from the inside out. The Harvester Prime intelligence had one last thought before it died. These beings were willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. It had never encountered anything like that before. The star exploded. Light brighter than 1,000 suns erupted from the core. The shockwave tore through the Dyson sphere like paper. Every harvester ship in the system was vaporized instantly. The massive construction facility, built over centuries, became cosmic dust in heartbeats. Miles away, the alien fleet watched in stunned silence as the supernova expanded. Commander Veltar felt tears running down her face. Something her species only did when witnessing something sacred. Now she understood why humans were called Deathworlders. They didn't just survive on a harsh planet. They became harsh enough to protect soft worlds. Across the galaxy, every remaining harvester unit suddenly went dark. Without their prime intelligence and main facility, they simply shut down. The threat that had terrorized civilizations for generations was over. The human sacrifice saved billions of lives. In the years that followed, every species in known space would remember the day its children answered a cry for help with fire, proving that sometimes the greatest love means burning yourself out to light the way for others.